Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah,
We love to tackle those big topics that really matter, and today is no exception. We're going all in on mental health.
definitely a topic that deserves all the attention we can give it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about this deep dive is the source material we're working with. It's a transcript from a podcast episode that goes really deep on mental health.
And it does a fantastic job of breaking down some complex ideas in a way that's easy to understand and even more importantly, apply to our own lives.
Which is exactly what we're going to be doing today. So get ready to walk away with some real actionable insights.
I think one of the most powerful takeaways from this episode is how it redefines mental health. It's not just about the absence of illness, like so many people think.
Right. So much bigger than that.
Exactly. It's about our overall well-being, how we think, feel, and behave, and how that impacts every single area of our lives.
It really is the foundation for everything else, isn't it?
It truly is. And that's why the episode draws this really interesting comparison between mental health and physical health.
Oh, yeah. I loved that part.
It makes you think, right? Like, we wouldn't hesitate to go to the doctor if we broke a leg.
Not at all.
But when it comes to our mental health, there's often this pressure to just tough it out or pretend everything's fine.
And that's where the stigma comes in, which the source talks about in detail. But before we get there, I think it's important to really understand why mental health is so crucial.
Absolutely. And the episode does a brilliant job of highlighting the amazing benefits of prioritizing our mental well-being.
So let's talk about those benefits, because it's not just about avoiding negative consequences. It's about unlocking this whole other level of well-being.
It's about thriving, not just surviving.
Exactly. And the source mentions things like increased resilience.
Yes, being able to bounce back from setbacks more easily.
Stronger relationships.
Absolutely deeper connections with the people we care about.
And even better decision-making.
It's like mental well-being gives us this clarity and focus that allows us to make choices that are truly aligned with our values and goals.
I love that. It's like having a secret weapon for navigating life's challenges and reaching our full potential.
It really is. And what's really fascinating is that there's a growing body of research to back all of this up.
So it's not just some feel-good concept, it's based on solid science.
Exactly. Studies have shown that people with higher levels of mental well-being tend to have stronger immune systems, recover faster from illness, and even live longer.
Okay, that's huge. It's not just about feeling good, it's about being physically healthier too.
It's all interconnected. And I think that's a really powerful message because so often we get caught up in the immediate stressors of daily life and we forget about the long-term impact of neglecting our mental health.
Like we're running on fumes and hoping we don't hit a wall.
And unfortunately, many people do hit that wall. And that's where those negative consequences really start to show up.
So let's talk about those consequences, because the source doesn't sugarcoat it.
Not at all. It goes way beyond just feeling stressed or down.
Right. It can have ripple effects throughout our entire lives.
Exactly. The source actually cites research linking untreated mental health issues to problems in relationships.
Makes sense when you think about it.
Difficulties at work.
Definitely impacts our ability to focus and be productive.
And even physical health issues like heart disease and chronic pain.
Wow. So it's not just in our heads, it can manifest in our bodies too.
Absolutely. Our mental and physical health are deeply intertwined.
It's like this domino effect.
Yeah.
One area starts to suffer, and it can trigger a cascade of problems in other areas of our lives.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be able to recognize the signs of mental health struggles early on.
But that can be tricky, right? Because everyone feels stressed or down sometimes.
Yeah.
Where's the line between just having a bad day and actually needing help?
That's a great question. And the source provides a really helpful framework for understanding those signs.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
Well, it's not about experiencing these things occasionally. It's about the persistence and severity.
So it's like the difference between having a cold and having the flu.
Exactly. A cold might make you feel a little off for a few days, but the flu knocks you down for a week or more.
So what are some of those signs we should be looking out for?
Well, the source mentions things like prolonged sadness, withdrawing from activities you used to enjoy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Changes in sleep or appetite, difficulty concentrating.
I've definitely experienced all of those at some point.
And even unexplained physical symptoms.
Oh, interesting. So it's not always obvious.
Not at all. It can be really subtle sometimes. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to those changes in ourselves and in the people we care about.
So it's not just about having a bad day. It's about those changes becoming the new normal impacting your ability to function and enjoy life.
Exactly. And the source really emphasizes that knowing these signs is incredibly empowering.
Because it gives you the knowledge to take action.
Exactly. The earlier you address a mental health concern, the better the outcomes tend to be.
It's like any other health issue. Early detection and treatment can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And that's why we need to break down the stigma surrounding mental health.
Because that stigma is often what prevents people from seeking help in the first place.
It's like this invisible barrier that keeps so many people suffering in silence.
And the source drops a pretty startling statistic about this.
Oh, yeah. The one about how 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health issue each year.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
It means this is incredibly common.
Way more common than people realize.
Yet we still act like it's something to be ashamed of.
And that shame, that fear of judgment is what keeps so many people from getting the help they need.
It's like we've created this culture where it's okay to talk about physical health, but when it comes to mental health, we're supposed to just suck it up.
And that's the insidious nature of stigma. It prevents people from getting help, which can lead to those problems we talked about earlier becoming even worse.
It's a vicious cycle, right? The stigma prevents people from seeking help, and the lack of help just perpetuates the stigma.
Exactly, and the source does a great job of breaking down the different ways the stigma manifests. From self-stigma, where you internalize those negative beliefs,
Like thinking you're weak or flawed because you're struggling.
to social stigma, where you face judgment and discrimination from others,
Like people making assumptions or treating you differently because of your mental health.
and even institutional stigma, where systems and policies create barriers to accessing mental health care.
It's a multi-layered issue, and it's heartbreaking because it prevents so many people from getting the support they deserve.
Absolutely. But the good news is that we can all play a part in breaking down these barriers.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we start to shift this conversation and create a more supportive and understanding culture around mental health?
Well, the source offers some really practical solutions like education, open conversations, and promoting empathy and compassion.
I love that. Imagine if we treated mental health with the same openness and acceptance as physical health,
What a world that would be.
right? Instead of seeing mental health challenges as something to be ashamed of, we could create a culture where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength and self-awareness.
It's about recognizing that we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. And sometimes we need a little extra support.
So true. But what can we do on a personal level to combat this stigma and start creating that culture of support?
Well, I think a good place to start is by becoming aware of our own biases. You know, those preconceived notions we have about mental health.
Yeah, we all have them, even if we don't realize it.
Exactly. It's about actively challenging those assumptions and choosing to be more open-minded and compassionate.
So instead of judging someone who's struggling, maybe we try to understand their experience
Exactly. It's about replacing judgment with curiosity.
and being willing to learn from those conversations,
The source also talks about the importance of educating ourselves about mental health.
which makes sense. The more we understand about these issues, the more equipped we are to support ourselves and others.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as reading articles, listening to podcasts like this one.
Or even just talking to people who have lived experience.
Exactly. The more we learn, the more we realize that mental health is just a part of being human.
It's not something to be afraid of or ashamed of.
And sharing that knowledge with others is so important too.
Because that's how we start to break down the stigma.
Exactly. Having open and honest conversations about mental health can help normalize these experiences and chip away at that fear and shame.
It's about creating a safe space for people to open up and share their struggles.
And the source gives some really great tips on how to start those conversations.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, like focusing on shared experiences, finding common ground.
Because let's be real, who hasn't felt overwhelmed or anxious at some point?
Exactly. It's a universal human experience.
And listening with empathy without judgment.
That's so important. Just being there for someone, letting them know they're not alone.
And sometimes that's all it takes, right? Just
No.
knowing that someone cares and understands.
Absolutely. And by sharing our own stories, we can help others feel less alone and more empowered to seek help if they need it.
So it's not just about changing our attitudes, it's about taking action.
Exactly. And the source also provides some really practical steps we can take to prioritize our own mental well-being.
Okay, so let's get into those actionable tips because I think that's what people are really looking for.
Well, the source talks about self-care, building strong connections, setting healthy boundaries, and even seeking professional help when needed.
It's like a toolkit for mental fitness.
I love that analogy. And just like physical fitness, it requires consistency and effort.
It's not a one-time fix, it's an ongoing journey.
Exactly. But even small changes can have a big impact over time.
So what are some examples of those small changes? I know the source talks a lot about self-care, but it can be such a vague term.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
But at its core, it's about finding activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, it's different for everyone. It could be as simple as taking a walk in nature, reading a book, listening to music, or spending time with loved ones.
It's about giving yourself permission to prioritize activities that bring you joy and recharge your batteries.
Exactly. And it's not selfish. It's essential.
Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right, exactly. The source also emphasizes the importance of strong connections.
Which makes sense. We're social creatures after all.
We are, and those relationships provide a sense of belonging, support, and purpose.
They're like shock absorbers for life's bumps.
I love that analogy, but sometimes even our closest relationships can be draining.
That's where boundaries come in, right?
Exactly. The source talks about how healthy boundaries are a form of self-respect.
It's about protecting your energy and prioritizing your well-being.
And it's not about being rude or pushing people away. It's about communicating your needs clearly and assertively.
So learning to say no is actually a form of self-care?
It is. It's about honoring your own limits and creating space for the things that truly matter to you.
I think a lot of people struggle with that, myself included, especially with the people we love.
It can be tough, but the source reminds us that it's not about building walls. It's about creating healthy fences that protect our emotional garden.
That's such a great way to put it.
And sometimes, even with the best self-care practices and a strong support system, we might need professional help.
And there's no shame in that.
Absolutely. The source emphasizes that seeking therapy is a sign of strength, not weakness.
It's about recognizing that we don't have to go through these challenges alone.
Exactly. And with the growing availability of online therapy and mental health resources, it's becoming more accessible than ever before.
Which is amazing because it shouldn't be a privilege to take care of your mental health.
And there's so much research showing how effective therapy can be for a wide range of mental health concerns.
It's not a magic bullet, but it can provide valuable tools and strategies for coping with life's challenges.
And for building a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
The source also dedicates a significant portion to discussing mindfulness.
Which is so relevant right now.
It seems like everyone's talking about it.
And for good reason. There's a growing body of research showing that mindfulness can have profound effects on our mental and emotional well-being.
So what is it about mindfulness that makes it so beneficial?
Well, it's about training your attention to be fully present in the moment without judgment.
So it's not just about sitting on a cushion and chanting,
It can be that, but it's really about cultivating a state of awareness and acceptance in our everyday lives.
So noticing your thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. And bringing your attention back to the present moment whenever it wanders.
I've tried some mindfulness practices like meditation and yoga, and I found them to be really helpful for managing stress and anxiety.
There's a reason for that. Research has shown that mindfulness can actually rewire our brains over time.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, it's pretty amazing. Regular mindfulness practice can actually increase the density of gray matter in areas of the brain associated with emotional regulation, self-awareness, and attention.
So it's like strengthening those mental muscles.
Exactly. It allows us to become more resilient to stress and better able to manage difficult emotions.
It's like giving our brains a much-needed software update.
And the best part is that even small doses of mindfulness can have a positive impact.
You don't have to spend hours meditating to reap the benefits.
Not at all. Even just a few minutes of mindful breathing or paying attention to the sensations of your body can help you feel more grounded and centered.
So it's about finding those little pockets of time throughout the day to be present.
Exactly. And with practice, that ability to be present becomes more natural and effortless.
You start to notice the beauty in everyday moments, and you're less reactive to stress and challenges.
It's like mindfulness gives you this superpower to pause, observe your thoughts and feelings, and choose how you want to respond.
Instead of just reacting on autopilot.
Exactly. And that ability to choose your response is incredibly empowering.
It allows you to break free from those habitual patterns of thinking and behaving that might be holding you back.
And that's what it's all about, right? Taking control of our mental well-being and creating a life that feels aligned and fulfilling.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from understanding the importance of mental health to recognizing the signs of struggle, breaking down stigma, and exploring practical steps for well-being, including the power of mindfulness.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has.
Yeah.
And I think the source's most powerful message is that mental health isn't a luxury, it's a necessity.
I completely agree. It's not something we can afford to neglect.
It's about investing in ourselves so we can show up as our best selves for the people we care about, for our work, and for our communities.
And it's about recognizing that we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. It's not about being perfect or never experiencing challenges. It's about having the tools and resources to navigate those challenges in a healthy and resilient way.
And just like we go to the doctor for regular checkups for our physical health, we should be doing the same for our mental health.
It's preventative care for our minds.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And the source makes this really interesting point about how mental health isn't a destination. It's a journey.
It's not about reaching some perfect state of happiness and then you're done.
Right. It's about learning to navigate the ups and downs, the twists and turns that life throws our way.
And building resilience along the way.
So it's about being prepared for those inevitable challenges and having the tools to cope with them.
And sometimes those tools might include seeking professional help.
And that's okay.
More than okay. It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Just like you wouldn't hesitate to see a doctor for a broken leg. You shouldn't hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional if you're struggling.
It's about taking care of yourself and recognizing that you don't have to go through this alone.
And the good news is that there are so many resources available now, from therapy and support groups to online platforms and even apps.
It's becoming more accessible than ever before.
Which is amazing because everyone deserves access to quality mental health care.
And the source really highlights the importance of creating a culture where seeking help is normalized and celebrated.
Where it's seen as a sign of self-awareness and a commitment to well-being.
Exactly. And I think that starts with each of us.
By checking in with ourselves regularly, paying attention to those subtle shifts in our moods and energy level.
And noticing those whispers from within before they become shouts.
And extending that same compassion and understanding to others.
Because we never know what someone else might be going through.
A simple act of kindness, a listening ear, a supportive word can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And imagine if we could create a world where we talk about mental health as openly and comfortably as we talk about physical health.
Where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength and self-care, not weakness or shame.
That's the kind of world I want to live in.
Me too. And I truly believe it's possible.
It starts with each of us challenging those outdated stigmas, normalizing conversations about mental health, and creating a culture of empathy and support.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into mental health, I hope you're walking away with a deeper understanding of why it matters and what you can do to prioritize your own well-being and support those around you.
Remember, you are not alone. There are resources available, people who care, and a whole community ready to support you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. And until next time, take care of yourselves, be kind to one another, and never hesitate to reach out for help if you need it.